Hello, everyone. Um, in business, we love talking about performance. We love talking about targets, growth, results, all these important things. Um, but somehow we often lack the conversation about what it really takes to drive setups and teams like this. Um, Being a human inside all of this pressure that's sometimes in marketing as well. So today we are joined by a true marketing leader who has been very vocal about authenticity, about mental resilience, about creating space for people to perform as themselves, as who they really are. Um, she is a VP of marketing and brand at Vestas, a loving parent, and a true believer that you need to be true to yourself. Laurence, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining Casper and I on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We haven't met, Laurence, so if you could just spend a minute on who you
Well,
are and
So I'm Laurence. I'm originally from Canada, from Montreal. So I'm French Canadian. I've been living now in Denmark for 20 years. I'm a mother of two kids, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. I live in Copenhagen. I work for Vestas. I've been at Vestas for 15 years. I've done all sorts of things in the company. I've worked in strategy and communication, in public affairs, on the commercial side, and I'm heading marketing. I've been heading marketing at the company for the last 4 years now. And I spend a lot of time online, and I create a lot of content about leadership and authenticity.
And we love it. We
Yeah.
saw it. And on That's Talk Data, we've been talking a lot about humans behind marketing, humans behind tech, behind all the tools that we work in. So your content has really been resonating with us, and we were really impressed with it. But before we dive into the whole marketing array of things, I'm super interested in what shaped your belief of bringing in the human side so much into to leadership as it has done.
Yeah, so I think it comes from the fact that in addition to everything I've said initially in my intro, I'm also part of the LGBTQIA community. So when I started working, I always promised myself that I would be out and I would be myself at work. So for me, that has always been really important, that I and everybody else can be who they are at work. And so it came very naturally. So my entire career, I've been out and very open about that. And over time, it has evolved that I've talked about it way more than I intended to, and I became someone who was asked to open doors and be more of a diversity representative for the company and also outside the company.
Yeah. So being used as a spokesperson
Yes.
for embracing this culture.
Exactly, and showing that it's okay to be who you are at work, that people come in all sorts of different shapes and forms, and that it adds value to the company, and it helps us innovate, it helps us be different, it helps us if we are who we are at work.
Yeah. Was there a certain point in your career where this approach became real to you, where it kind of like what became a path that you say, hey, I want to follow this?
Yeah, I think earlier in my career, I was very vocal about who I was at work, but there was not a lot of people doing it. It was basically just me. There was not a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion. I think when COVID hit and after COVID, when we started going back to work, there was a big movement in a lot of large corporations before Trump got into office and before DEI has been pushed aside again. But there was a probably a 2-3 years where it became extremely important in large corporation to be open to diversity, to have diversity and inclusion agenda. And at that point in time, it spoke to me a lot to get a lot more involved. So I got a lot involved at work in different employee resource groups. I did a lot of keynotes and really help pave the way, because at that point I was also already a VP.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the credibility, I had done the work. So my visibility was a privilege.
Yeah.
And I thought that I should pay it forward to the people who are not in a visible position, but who want to be themselves at work.
Yeah.
Did that happen because of COVID, or was it just a coincidence that it It
I think at work it happened as a coincidence. For me personally, during COVID, and maybe you want to talk about that later on, but for me during COVID, I got a bit of a burnout, and I was feeling quite low. It happened during COVID when we were all sent home. So I spent a lot of time working on my mental health. Who am I besides being this person who works for Vestas? So I had a bit of an identity crisis during COVID because I felt that most of my identity was tied to my title and to my job.
Okay.
And I thought, if I lose my job during COVID, who am I going to be?
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time during COVID in 2020, 2021, trying to figure out who am I besides this person who works for Vestas. And I think that's where it came from, this idea that I wanted to really be me at work, and what did that entail?
Okay.
I also discovered I was neurodivergent during that period because of my burnout. So that added to the list of things that I was working with and trying to figure out what my identity was. So when we finally went back to work, then I was very open to talk about these things because I had just been through a 12, 18 months period of soul searching.
Yeah.
So for me, it just made sense. And then the company was also very ready. We had a lot of initiatives going on for diversity and inclusion at the time. Yeah.
You talk a lot about courage in this, like the courage to be yourself, which I find very inspiring. Can you talk a bit about all these things that you're mentioning here at a company like Vestas? What does this courage mean every day when you have to bring it into life, when you have, because it's a big step, I guess.
I think, yeah, I guess it is courage. I think the first thing is that what people find really hard is it's really hard to be vulnerable in front of a lot of people. It's hard to just show who you are and put yourself in a place of vulnerability. And but what I've learned is that when you're vulnerable, it resonates with people, and actually it makes you way stronger because people then come to you and tell you, "Oh, I feel the same." But it is hard to be yourself at work, and also in a lot of big companies, especially very large companies like Vestas, where there's 35,000 employees. There is a culture, there is a structure, and people want to climb the ladder. You kind of need to figure out how to fit in, what behaviors are accepted, how people speak, how people carry themselves, and of course it can be courageous to try to be fully yourself at work because you might fall out of that norm. You might not look anymore like a ex-McKinsey consultant. You might look different. So it is a bit of courage, but I think the more people do it, the more it becomes the norm to be all different, and then the easier it is for everyone to just be themselves.
Yeah. And being a marketing leader, how do you go about creating the safety for the people that's on your team?
I think being in marketing is a great advantage because we come with or there is this idea in large corporation that marketing is different already. It's the creative people.
Yeah.
So because we're the creative people, I am not, but a lot of people on my team are, we are already allowed to be a little bit different. We like most of the team, most people on my team don't wear any suits. But if we were in finance, I think it would be much harder because there is a standard for what a finance person should look like. Whereas in marketing, it's been much easier because we have creative directors, we have people with long hair, we have people wearing just normal clothes every day, T-shirts. So it's been much easier.
Yeah. There's no special, like now you mentioned that Vestas also kind of took the decision to move forward on a more diverse approach to things.
Yes.
But if in a company, I guess in less diverse companies, it would take some leadership to kind of encourage that courage to be present.
Absolutely. If the ambassadors are not leaders themselves, then it's really hard for people, at lower levels to be able to be themselves and take that courage themselves, because they could also be pushed aside or be told that they don't fit. So it needs to be sponsored at the highest level
super
possible.
Interesting. Yeah. And Casper, we've been talking a lot previously on the podcast about making change. Like we've been talking a lot about the like marketing leaders and tools and change and data ownership and all these things. That is also kind of like how we as leaders enable a culture where where we can kind of shapeshift in some form, right? Um, do you like, how do you see this? Like, because I think obviously having the courage to be yourself is a bit different, but it's also like having courage to dare to take the power, so to say.
Yeah, but I think there's also a big difference between being a corporate company like Vestas with 35,000 employees and then having a consultancy of 30 people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think being 30 people is to some degree like a family. At least you can create that feeling, which also makes it easier to be one. I can't pronounce that. Well,
Vulnerable.
thank you. Whereas obviously there's some hierarchy or structures in an enterprise company, right? Um, so I think the environment is also playing a large role
Yeah.
in how we can create a culture around it, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And the diversity is super interesting because I see the diversity happening on so many levels right now. It's both the diversity in terms of thinking differently, of dressing differently, of being a man versus a female in terms of empowerment to take decisions and make changes and all these things. So there's so much going on that can be somewhat stressful for many people, and it's a talk track. But I guess the first step is being open about it and talking about it. Is that something that you experience too?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the first steps to talk about it.
Yeah.
To talk about it, to make sure that everyone knows that it's expected, that it's okay. So there's awareness. And then the next step is for leaders to embrace it and do it.
Yeah.
Because if you allow to be vulnerable, if you allow yourself as a leader to be vulnerable in front of your employees, tell them if something important is going on, then you also give them permission to do the same afterwards.
Yeah.
As an example, I got divorced in 2024. And I also lost my best friend to a biking accident during the same period.
Mhm.
And when I went back to work in August that year, I did tell my team at our first team meeting that I was not feeling great.
Yeah.
That my headspace was very handicapped, and so that if I forgot things, if I was not present or anything, they should let me know because I was just not fully myself. But I also didn't want to be home and just dwell on.
No,
So
no,
I
no.
wanted to do something. And that allowed my team. My team was great. They supported me so much. They managed to do everything. I barely had to do anything. But the feedback I got later is that was really great because it allowed them to feel comfortable if something happens in their life.
Yeah.
They know that it's okay. You don't have to, keep that at home. You can say it. You can say it to your manager. You can figure out how much can you work, what can we do, and it's comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
And there might also be um not a wrong perception, but an idea if you're a manager that you need to be strong for your team,
Yes,
right?
always.
But I think as if you can share things like that, it creates a stronger culture in the team,
Yes.
right?
It also creates a stronger collaboration.
Yeah.
People can feel that they need to be there for each other, so it's also where trust is much we can establish trust on a much higher level.
Yeah.
And then people can help each other. It's no longer everyone for themselves. So it's also, you're really fostering more like a feeling of a real team coming together.
Yeah.
But it requires the courage to be vulnerable in the
Yeah.
first place, because it's not easy to tell, a whole team, I'm not doing well.
No.
Yeah.
It is not easy. It's also not easy to tell your own boss. So I had to tell my boss because, there is a perception that suddenly maybe people will see me as weak or as less competent, or maybe they'll think, okay, she's no longer good enough to do her job. So it requires courage. But when you do it and people receive it well at all levels, then you also realize that, afterwards, the team is better. My relationship with my manager has been better because we know that we can trust each other.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of the survival mode. I think you called it survival mode. It was a scroll stopper for me when I read your post about it, because I was like, I've never seen anyone talk about this before. But you talk about performing in what you call survival mode, and many people listening in, including myself, really, really, it resonated with me because I was like, hey, I know this. I can totally relate to this feeling. How did you realize that you were, or when did you realize that you were performing this mode and all the thoughts that you have around performing in survival mode?
Could we take a step back for people who haven't
Hmm.
read it and just add a few words on the post that you
Absolutely,
refer to?
absolutely. I hope Laurence that you know what I'm talking about. But it is essentially yeah, the survival mode post.
Yeah, so I think I made a couple of videos and also wrote, I think, an article about how in 2024 I was in survival mode all year. And you know, you still have to do your job and you still have to perform, you still have to deliver.
Mhm.
And how do you manage that when you are also just trying to survive and you really don't feel good, which goes back to what we were just talking about. And you know, for me, I think in 2024, I have the first half of the year where I was in survival mode and I was not feeling great. But I just did my job. I went to work and I tried my best to just park things outside as much as I could. But still, after a few months of doing that, it became too heavy. And at some point I realized, you know, I need people to know that I'm hitting a limit,
Mhm.
that I can continue to deliver, but I'm not feeling great and I don't want to go on sick leave. So, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to be told I'll take time off because I know that I've done it before. I've taken time off. I've had a burnout before. I knew that that would not help. I need to do things in the day because my home life is awful. I was
Mm.
going through a divorce, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
be home. So I think performing survival mode, it was good at the beginning to just pretend I'm doing fine, but after a while it became too taxing, and that's when I had to start talking about it and say it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also be very clear to people that I was not going on stress leave. I needed work. I needed something to occupy myself.
But needed to have that support from
Yeah,
the
because
team
I
and
my short-term memory became very bad. I was not always attentive. Sometimes in meetings, I would lose track of what we were talking about. So
yeah.
my cognitive level was reduced.
Yeah.
I had too much on my mind.
Mm.
So, you know, I needed people to know, and I needed people to tell me when I forgot things. But I also wanted to be at work.
But there's a big difference between telling your team
Yes.
and then publicly
Yes.
saying it, right?
Yes, I waited a little while. I
Yeah.
mean, I waited a little while and I waited when I started to feel better. I was not fully out of it, but when I started to feel better, I started having energy, having coffee chats by the coffee
Mhm.
machine, like talking about what you did in the weekend for months. That was really, really tiring. Like I did not want to talk to people about anything. I did it, but it was very tiring. And then I discovered maybe around November 2024 that I was at the coffee machine talking about a movie and I was engaged and I was feeling good about it. And it was the first time in months that I was enjoying a small talk. And at that point, I started to notice I'm slowly getting better, and that's when I decided to talk about it openly
Mm.
because I was also I was starting to be on the other side. So I also felt that it was a good time to talk about it, and I wanted to put it out because I do feel that a lot of people have this illusion that leaders know everything and they're always grounded. They always know what they're doing. That you know big things in life don't really affect them that much. They're very good at keeping that at home. And I wanted to demystify that because it's not true.
Love that approach. I think it's super important.
Leaders also have a hard time. They just are
Mm.
very good at hiding it,
Yeah.
which doesn't make it healthier.
Which I find very interesting because so many leaders talk about uh, empathy, talk about psychological safety and
Mhm.
security, but so many teams are burned out still in marketing, especially I think at this time where a lot is happening around the marketing space as well.
Yeah.
Where do you think this gap comes from?
Well, I think right now is a very interesting time because in Denmark, but also in other markets, you know, there's so many people looking for jobs.
Hmm.
The market is saturated with unemployed people, intelligent, talented people that have experience. So, you know, people in their roles in different companies and marketing are going to push even harder because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to they don't want to be unemployed and be part of thousands of other people looking for jobs. So I think for now that trend is not going to improve, at least not in the short term. I think people will burn out even more because they don't want to lose their job. I can also see it in my job. People want to stay, people don't want to go because they know it'll be very hard to find another job if they're kicked out or if they decide to resign or look for something else.
Yeah.
But to go back to your main question, like why in marketing, I think it's just that we're still trying to figure out as humans how to showcase our vulnerability without it being perceived as a weakness.
Yeah.
How can you say to people, like, I don't feel good, without people thinking you're weak, you can't do your job? And that we're still trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it is a risk. You could have a manager that if you tell your manager, yeah, I'm really tired, I'm feeling less motivated, that immediately your manager will be like, okay, that's it. This person needs to be out at some point, or they need something needs
Just
to
move to number
change.
one on the list of people who.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's still a lot of efforts to be done in psychological safety.
Yeah.
And for managers to do the work because it's their job.
But I guess as managers, there's a responsibility to take this on as well. But just thinking about what we just talked about with this survival mode,
Mhm.
I mean, like, it's easy when everything is fine and dandy.
Yes.
Then you kind of have the things going on. You have the like you can make changes because your mind is clear and ready for that. But when you're in survival mode, it can sometimes be hard. And I guess that a lot of marketing leaders are in kind of survival mode in these days, where a lot is happening around technology, around uh, everything in the world, around the bigger companies, figuring out how can we optimize, how can we do different things. Do you feel that marketing leaders should take a, a different step or more responsibility into this area?
But I think all leaders should, marketing leaders too, but I do understand it's a tough period. There's also, even if we might all have our opinions of how AI will come in and is coming into marketing, there is pressure by a lot of leaders or company owners to improve productivity and to work faster and better using AI. And that puts a lot of pressure, especially on marketing, because that's one of the first disciplines that have been identified as, oh, AI can help.
Yeah.
It can write all your content. It can push through all your channels, so there is a lot of pressure. And I don't think that pressure will be reduced in the short term. So I think it's a very tough balance for marketing leaders. So how much can I push my team and how much can I make sure that we deliver the results versus how much can I, be myself, be vulnerable, tell that it's difficult. So finding how to create psychological safety and still deliver. And that's a tough balance, but I think it's the responsibility of the leader to figure out how to match that.
Yeah.
Best they can.
I really like that. In talking about marketing, I want to dive a bit more into the actual marketing side. Now you mentioned before we went on air here that, like, being in industrial marketing, B2B, there is kind of a different approach to it. You often know a lot of the customers before you need to, like, it's not finding leads. You know who you're gonna do business with in the future, and it's a lot about branding. It's a lot about creating the all the sub things around the usual marketing funnel. The marketing funnel doesn't exist, as you said. Can you take us into that world?
Yeah. So working in a large industrial, so Vestas, we sell wind projects. So we sell multi-million to multi-billion customized infrastructure projects. So we don't sell one turbine, we sell a lot of them. In rare cases, just one, but it's very expensive and it's a customized projects. We have about 300 customers globally, and most of them, a lot of the projects will go through tenders because the government needs to allow it. There's permits. So we usually know where the projects are going to be. And we usually have, 2 to 3, sometimes 4 competitors bidding on the same projects. And if the customer owns the land, owns the project, and there's no bidding, then it's still relationship based, and it's still, us versus maybe one or two other competitors. So we already know. So there's no leads. It's not like we're going to discover something that no one in sales knew. Everyone knows the customers and the projects. So from a marketing standpoint, our job is very, very different. The customers know us; they know the brand. So it's a lot of our marketing effort is, of course, on the brand, the stories, making sure that they know about the latest projects, the latest innovation, about how we've done something in the US and how we're doing it now in Europe, or vice versa. And then another very important part of what we do in marketing is customer intimacy. Organizing special events, organizing customer visits, allowing our executives to be with our customers' executive in a setting that makes their relationship flourish, so that if there's a problem in 3 months on a project, our CEO can just call the CEO of the customer and they can solve it immediately.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to show that on a KPI dashboard. It's very hard to showcase the return on the investment, but we usually showcase it through anecdotes by saying, for example, we invited an American CEO to an event in October, and 2 months later, there was a problem in a project in South America, and our CSO called them. Usually it would take 2-3 weeks for the meeting to take place. They texted each other, they went on a call the same day, and they fixed the problem immediately. And that's because they spent 2 days together in October in France at an event. And so our job in marketing is to do a lot of that customer intimacy. And then, of course, we survey our customer, we have data on them, but making sure that we get our executive and the customers closer.
Yeah.
That's a large part. And then, of course, the normal branding, storytelling, and so on to really try to stay top of mind and make sure that all our customers remember how great we are.
Yeah.
By really targeting them, especially on LinkedIn, with content that speaks to them.
Yeah. So yeah, staying top of mind.
Top of mind.
Yeah. At Acrease, we refer to that as the day one list, right? So if you ask, who would you reach out to for wind turbines?
Yes.
You want to make sure that the Vestas is in that top 3.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Because then after that, it's other factors that marketing can influence.
Yeah.
So we need to be top of mind, and that means they need to know the brand, they need to know how we feel, how we talk, and then they need to know who the people are in the company.
Yeah.
So we also spend a lot of time making sure that our executives are very present online, on LinkedIn, and elsewhere, because they're also the voice of the company.
Yeah. A lot of other companies, like most companies, to be honest, are still running this crazy demand generation machine. More leads, more campaigns, more dashboards, everything. From where you sit, is there something that like the traditional marketing world is missing out on from what you learned at being in a bit of different setup?
I think, in a B2C or in a B2B where you have a lot of customers, demand generation and leads are critical, and they're very, very important.
Yeah.
And I do wish that where I work, we could quantify the return on the investment and have more KPIs. So I don't want to say that what others are doing is not good. I actually want to say that I wish I could do sometimes more like the others. But I do think that, at least in B2B, even if you don't work industrial, one thing that is really important and that we need to take from B2C is that at the end of the day, even in massive, large projects, the decision makers are people. And money makes a lot of decisions, but it's never really money at the end of the day. People make decisions based on a very emotional, a lot of emotions that they have about the product, about the company, and about the people they deal with. And that we need to focus on in marketing a lot, even in B2B, and even when we do lead generation.
Yeah.
People, emotions. Yes.
If you could go back to being a younger marketing leader, with everything that we talked about here, and I think it ties perfectly together with everything that you are talking about, both in your online profiles and in terms of your work and all these things, like be authentic to yourself. Uh, Understand that you will perform in survival mode. Understand that you need to do all these things. Uh, you are in high pressure, but still you need to understand the dynamics of marketing as well. And I think it's super interesting what you just talked about in terms of how we buy it is not always money. With all these things in consideration, going back when you first became a marketing leader, um, what belief in yourself would you challenge the most?
I think, well, that's easier said. It's easy after the fact.
Yeah.
I think I would have probably tried to be more risky from the get-go on some of the decisions I've made. There is, for when I first became a marketing leader, the first time I was heading digital marketing and campaigns, and we did a lot of the legacy work. So a lot of what my team and I inherited, we continued to do for a while. And I should have stopped that way faster.
Mhm.
Have the courage to, look at what has been done in the past without saying it's bad, but just asking yourself, are we still doing this because we've always done it, or are we doing it because it actually adds value?
Yeah.
And we ended up doing that, but it took me longer than it should have to have the courage to just be like, you know what? This doesn't add value. We shouldn't do it.
Mhm.
Nobody buys a turbine after reading a PDF brochure.
No.
Why are we making so many brochures? In the late 2010s, like in 2019, 2018, 2019. But so I think I would have taken more risk or be a little bit braver. I wanted to make sure that I was being perceived as doing a good job. And I was, but I that's what I would have told myself, to be a little bit more risky, not headless risky, but just to stand up for what I believed a little bit faster.
Yeah. We talk a lot about this, about the situation, the do as we always do. Don't risk. Don't let go with both hands
Yeah.
to experience what could happen. And it's really the challenge in most marketing that's going on, as I see it today. Exactly what you mentioned here. Um, is it something that you see a lot of in the market too? That that marketing leaders are very conventional and not daring to do, like, follow the advice that you would give
Yeah.
to yourself as a
I mean, all the marketing leaders I know in large industrials, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's people are very careful not to go too fast and not to change things too fast. And I see that a lot. And I see, daring to go places that we haven't gone yet. It takes a lot of approvals, or it takes a lot of guts.
Mhm.
An example would be, for example, in our U.S. team managed to succeed at getting everyone to agree that we should have a TikTok account, not for Vestas, but a separate TikTok account to promote wind in a positive way.
Yeah.
And to do it in a very TikTok way. For example, one of the videos shows it's a black screen, and it's written on it, disclaimer: you will now see awful footage of cows and wind turbines. And then it's just these cows with these wind turbines in the background. It's a sarcastic video about how, the cows are fine. They're just hanging out. There's wind turbines. And we started doing a lot more of that, but it took a long time to dare go down that more modern, very B2C, targeting younger people in different community. It took us a long time to get there.
Yeah.
So long time because of getting the courage to do it, or long time to get the company aligned on and approved to do it?
Yeah, they're both.
Oh,
So
okay.
first ourselves to say,
Yeah.
should we do it? And
Mhm.
are we ready? And then once we decided as a group, okay, we should do it with the American team, to get everyone to agree. There's also, in large corporation, there's a lot of education to be done. What do we mean by making videos on TikTok? For what purpose? Who is this for? We're not like that. We're like this big company. We have one way of
Not the corporate
speaking.
style.
This is not our style, and so on. And that took also time and courage, because you have to change people's opinions. And often in large company, at least that's where I come from, even though people are not marketeers, everyone believes they have expertise in marketing. they confuse their opinion with their expertise. So, but they believe that they have an expertise.
Mhm.
So you have a lot of convincing to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I am a marketer sitting somewhere and in whatever industry or whatever my situation is, I looked at turbines being sold as PDF documents. What is your advice? What should I do? Like, how do we promote this change and get it started?
Yeah, so we had that challenge, and we started by first asking sales, how do they use these PDF?
Mhm.
And they were saying to us that we leave them behind with the customer. So we said, well, from a sustainability standpoint, that's a ridiculous idea. We don't need that. And then we said, like, do we really look at them? And if it was a PowerPoint, would it be easier? And we had the same content in PowerPoint anyway. So we started with sales, just asking them and making sure sales would be okay no longer having them. And then we just stopped updating them. And when things are no longer available or updated, people stop using them. And I took a decision: if people reach out, we will see if we should accommodate their needs.
Mhm.
But then when nobody reaches out, then you realize they were not that needed, right? So we did it slowly, step by step, but by really making sure that the main users were not going to need them. And if they did, we really challenged their needs.
Yeah. So it became a more operational thing than a company political
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, and we use sustainability. We said we're going paperless.
Yeah.
And when you say stuff like that, then it was like, okay. But then it also meant we didn't want to make PDF brochures online either, because it's not helpful either.
No.
But it's also a great example of what you said before, that we're doing something because we've always been doing it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's probably a good exercise that even if you are sitting in a company for very long, that you sometimes challenge, should we just revisit why we're doing this? As well as someone new coming in
Yes.
and just challenge status quo on it, right?
I think it's easier for the new people. The new people always do it, right? They
Yeah,
come in, they're like,
they
why
have
are
a
we doing
vision
this?
and yeah.
But as a person who's been there a long time, it's a tough thing to do. But I think we should do it way more. Like, every 12 to 18 months, you should do a quick, like, let's look at everything we do.
Yeah.
Are we still sure these are all relevant? Or are we just stuck
In the process of
doing it and reporting on them?
Yeah.
And then people expect us to report, therefore we continue to do it. So,
Yeah.
because that happens.
Honestly, I think this is one of the main challenges that we're seeing in marketing. Marketing is super challenged about having impact in a company because it often becomes very soft conversations, as we talked about before, compared to what the CFO brings, what IT brings, what all the other, which means that we, in marketing leaders, are the least trusted voice in top leadership due to these reasons. And I think a lot of it is to what you said just now, what we've been talking about today, like daring to change something that doesn't work. The biggest challenge in marketing is that we do way too many things that essentially doesn't work. And what works for the individual is up to the individual. You know best. But when you see things that doesn't work, like dare to change it, dare to let go. I think that's what I really wanted to change politically. And
sometimes you don't know that it's not working, right?
well,
Because it's you're just stuck in the process of you've always been doing it, like you said, we've
Not
been reporting
asking.
on it, right? And
Yes.
nobody's asking questions or
Yes.
yeah.
I think many leaders know a lot of things that doesn't work, that they for some reason don't dare to change due to political reasons. I really love the advice on it being operational or instead
Or
of
because they have a CEO or a leader who firmly believes that this is needed.
exactly.
And that happens.
But in many cases also until otherwise is proven. But this is
Yes.
the the dance that's going on
Yeah.
right now, right? And I think marketing needs to take ownership of this. And I think that is super important that we dare to have an opinion in anything in the world right now, that we dare to say this is not okay. Like we need to change this on larger, on smaller scale. And I think it's up to the individual to do that. And I think for marketing, this is the thing that I really wanted to change. And I think as a leader, I really want to be open to the courageous approach to being yourself and to these things. I think it's super important. I think it's super important being vulnerable as a leader to your team and to.
And I also think semi-related to what you're saying, but as we have so much content coming out that is done with AI or through AI or with some AI, what I foresee we'll see is that companies that want to marketing teams and companies that want to stand out will now need to not to actually use people, like the people behind the brands, way more to market themselves. Because otherwise, people will crave for authentic content, authentic people, and not just, another maybe semi done by someone, semi done by AI composition video where it's just a brand being showed and you don't know who it is. So I do think that marketeers have a great opportunity ahead is that there will be such a pull for authenticity, for actual real people, and they should use it.
Yeah.
They should use it because if you look at all big brands of the world, their CEOs, for good and bad reasons, are the brand. And we as marketeers need to be ready to brand the people in the company also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laurence, thank you so much for joining Dad's Talk
Thank you so
Data.
much.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, and really inspiring as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is super interesting. Before we let you go,
Yeah.
if people wanna follow you,
Yes.
where should they go?
They can go anywhere. LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Threads, I have a Substack newsletter. But if you go to LinkedIn, you'll find me. I have a website also. So if you go to LinkedIn, my name, very simple, then I'm there. And then you can click on visit my website or just follow me there. Yeah. Thank you.
That is
Thank
past.
you, Laurence.
Thank you so much for joining, and to everyone listening in, thank you. We look forward to seeing you next time, and we hope that this inspired you just as much as it did us.